What's going on, you guys? My name is Matt and welcome back to Matt Does a Lot. And today I want to show you the coolest Air Pokemon card sales I saw on eBay this week. We got 30 of them. Let's get right into it. Alright, kicking things off, we have a Lapras from Fossil Set with an incomplete holo error. You can see the stars on the holo pattern are missing here, which kind of gives it a holo or a mirror finish, I would say. And this in a PSA 8 sold for $350. Next up, we have a heavy hitter with number 2 here. We have a first edition Houndoom with the double holo error, or we could call it a variant. So with this one, the holo pattern was actually printed twice on the card. And the easiest way to tell with Houndoom here is the white border around it, the Houndoom, will actually be filled in. And in the PSA 9, this card sold for $3,500 this week. Woo! It's a lot of cheddar. Sticking with the double holo error or variant, we have Misdreavus from Neo Revelation. And this one is very cool. I want you to look at Misdreavus' eyes here. You can see that the holo pattern are actually filling in the eyes there. I think that is just very, very cool. And in the PSA 9, this sold for $320. Next up, we have a Vaporeon Pop 3 holo with a miscut. So you can see, again, this is a miscut because of the alignment dot on the bottom left corner there. And this sold for $12.13. That's a good price for this card. Next up, I have a trio of Blastoises for you here. First one, we have a base set Blastoise with the red dot ink error. You can see on the portion of the card, the lower part, where it says Hydro Pump, there are the 3 water symbols there, and there was a red dot right above one of those water symbols. And this is a repeating error, and this card sold, we had one bidder, and it sold for $100. Here you can see we have that exact same error, but this card got graded with PSA, graded in a PSA 5, sold for $150. And to round out this Blastoise trio, we have a base set Blastoise with the no stage error. So if you're not familiar with this error, you can look at the top right of the card where it says put Blastoise on the, and it's supposed to say stage 1 card, but stage got blotted out there. And this is a repeating error, and in a CGC 8.5, this card sold for $250. Next up, we have an absolute classic. I always love reporting on this one. We have a first edition Butterfree from Jungle Set with the D error. This one, we have a printer hickey that is very precariously placed on the 1 on first edition, and that printer hickey makes it look like a D. And so this is a repeating error, and this sold for $21.01 this week. All right, next up, we have a heavy hitter here. We have a base set water energy card with a printer hickey. Actually, 2 printer hickeys. And I listed a photo of the person who purchased this card. I had to do a little bit of research, but it seems like a pretty cool guy, in my opinion. And he got an absolute steal. He got this card for 99 cents and free shipping. What a legend. Next, we have a few Top Sun cards to talk about, and all of these are the no number error. So you can see on the right here for Squirtle, in the pink box there should be a number next to it. For Squirtle, it should be number 007, and that is missing. And because of this error, this card sold for $90.49. And with that exact same error, and the exact same sale price, we have Wartortle here. So Wartortle also sold for $90.49 as a best accepted offer price. And to round off the Top Sun trio, we have a Growlithe that sold for $150. That surprises me that Growlithe sold for more than Wartortle and Squirtle. But I guess, hey, that's the world of Air Pokemon cards. Next up, we have a Smeargle from Neo Discovery with a Holo Bleed. And from my knowledge, I believe that Holo Bleed is actually a lot rarer for Neo Discovery. And to see one that is this significant is pretty cool. This card was listed for $100 and had a best accepted offer price of $80. I tell you, I just love seeing the Holo Bleed kind of trickle through the rest of the card there. I think it's a very cool look. All right, next up we have an Ancient Mew card from the first Pokemon movie. So these cards were handed out if you went to go see the movie in person. If my memory serves me correctly, I believe I went to this. I think I opened the card, but with this we have a sealed Ancient Mew card. But the reason this sold for so much is there's actually 2 Ancient Mew cards in this original packaging. And one thing I found very interesting about this is if the owner of this card were to take both cards out of this packaging and submit them to PSA, and they both got PSA 10s, those cards would be worth less than they are right now. You can see a PSA 10 in this card goes for about $280. So very cool card, very high sale for an Ancient Mew card, and yeah, congrats to the buyer on this one. This is very interesting. Next up, we have a Phanpy from Call of Legends, and this is the Phanpy error. So this is one I actually own. I was made aware of it a few weeks ago, but you can see under where it says ultra thick skin, Phanpy is spelt wrong. They add an H after the P, after the second P. And this is a repeating error, and this card sold for $2.12 this week. Next up, there is nothing wrong with this card. PSA just messed up. So we have a Shining Gyarados here, just a standard edition, and PSA labeled it as a first edition. So in a PSA 4, this card sold for $150. Next, we have a Japanese Aerodactyl from Fossil Set, and this has a crimp error. So you can see on the top of the card that there's actually a crimp from when they were closing the packaging. So I have just an empty one here. So the top portion here, when that was crimped, some of that actually got onto the card because the machine was misaligned, and that leaves an imprint on it. And this card sold for $20. Next, we have a first edition Eevee from Team Rocket set. And this has a printer hickey, not in the top left, not in the bottom left, not in the bottom right, in the top right of the card. You can see a pretty significant printer hickey there. And this sold for $5.99. Next up, we have Ninetales from XY Evolutions, and this is a hollow bleed. So you can see the hollow pattern is spreading out for more than just the art box and the card. And I absolutely love these errors. I think they're very cool. And you can see this one sold for quite the premium. This had a sale of $54.98. And typically this card goes for only $3.77. And here we have the highest selling no jungle symbol error card that I found this week when I was searching eBay. So this no symbol Jolteon Hollow in a PSA 9 sold for $245. I typically see around, I'd say, 10 to 14 of these cards. And I always just like to list my favorite one because it would become repetitive if I were to list all of them. Next up, we have an Executor from Jungle Set. And this has a printer hickey in the bottom left corner. And this card sold for $25 this week. I always like to think of eBay auctions as kind of a battle. I like to think there is the seller versus the buyer. And they're going back and forth, trying to make a deal, trying to meet in the middle. And for this next card, I would say the seller definitely won. So we have a first edition Red Cheeks Pikachu in a PSA 10. This card sold for $4,560. I can see on price charting that this card, a PSA 10 Red Cheeks Pikachu, typically goes for around $3,680. So the seller definitely made a lot more money than they should have on this card. But I guess congrats to the buyer too. If you have that kind of money to throw around, you're definitely not a loser, I would say. So a very cool card to see sell in auction this week. Next up, we have an Impeleon from Diamond and Pearl. And this is another hollow bleed. And this one had a best accepted offer price of $24.99. Next up, we have a Crushing Hammer with a miscut error. Again, you can see this is a miscut because of the little black alignment dot in the bottom right corner. And this card sold for $3.49. Next, we have an Ancient Mew that has a misalignment error. And I had to do a little bit of research on this. I was unfamiliar, but my understanding is a misalignment is where one side of the card is misaligned. And that would be versus a card that is miscut, where both sides of the card are misaligned. And so this misalignment in a CGC9 had this Ancient Mew card sell for $84.44. Next up, we have a first edition Pikachu from Neo Genesis, and this is the gray stamp error. Take a look at that first edition symbol on the card on the right there. You can see it's pretty faded. I've seen other gray stamp errors that are just slightly faded, and those are cool, but I definitely think the more faded the stamp, the cooler the card. And this in a CGC 8.5 sold for $199.99. You can see this compared to the average non-error price of $28. So this is definitely a significant increase for the error on this. Next up, we have All Reliable. We have Charizard from Pokemon Evolutions, and this is a miscut. So I'm trying to look. Yeah, you can see an alignment dot there in the bottom left corner. And because of this error, this card sold for $99.95. And speaking of our boy Charizard, we have a PSA 9 base set Charizard with the black dot error. I absolutely love this error. I always love looking for it, and I always love actually finding it. So here, you can see on the bottom of the card where it says Nintendo, there's a black dot. This is a repeating error. And along with that black dot, every single one of these errors has a slight hollow shift. So if you look at the bottom of the art box, you can see that the hollow is actually shifted up a little bit, and there's a portion where that is not hollow. And in a PSA 9, this card sold for $2,194. Absolutely incredible. All right, next up we have the NFC, or not factory cut portion of the video. I will see several of these pop up in auctions, and I decided it would just be fun to list the one that either sold for the most or was the most interesting. And I believe this one sold for the most, and I guess it was the most interesting. So this is from Neo Genesis, and you can see a good portion of this card was Onyx. And the owner of the card cut up a sheet with a pair of scissors. They cut them themselves, which is why it's called not factory cut. And yeah, I guess I'm coming around to these. Definitely kind of cool to have your little piece of history there. And this card sold for $112.50. Ooh, and to wrap up this week's auction, we have a Vulpix with the blue dot error. Now, I always like to include a description of the error, and this is the first time I saw it be called the blue butt Vulpix. But either way, this is a repeating error. You can see that there is blue ink on Vulpix's butt, and this card sold for $49.99. All right, well, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you very much. I appreciate your guys' support here. I see that I have a couple of reoccurring viewers, which I think is very fun. I hope you guys are enjoying the videos. And yeah, please subscribe and check back next week to see the next auction recap. Have a good day.